From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, December the 9th, the year of our Lord, 2015. And now, here they are, live in person, and still waiting for Santa Claus at their age, Jim and Rich.
Oh, aren't we Jack Frost FM this time of year, Mr. DeVita?
Yes, we are.
Okay, you said Jack FM. I want to make sure we get the ID in properly. Leon and Massaro, two guys who have absolutely no idea what they're going to talk about, but managed to fill an hour.
But in the words of, was it Little Richard? I'm ready. Ready.
There you go. There you go. We're always ready. We have no idea where we're going, but we somehow But we somehow managed to get there.
Hey, Ray Murphy listened to a little bit of us last week. And he sort of liked it, but he didn't listen.
He sort of liked it.
He sort of liked it. He was very happy that he was our third listener.
The operative word is he sort of liked it.
Yeah, sort of liked it. He said, actually, what he liked is the variety of it. He said, you guys sort of go from one thing to another.
Yeah, that just means we're ADD, Ray.
ADD is right. So what the heck?
I don't know.
You know what? I
got nothing on my mind today. Where do you want to go with this?
Article I read in the paper was finally that female reporter in the for USA Today that's in the Sun Times who has got a big social conscience. Finally wrote a really good article though about the bowls and how many bowls there are. And did you realize that only 1/3 of the 127 teams they consider to be the the Division I teams?
Right.
Only 1/3 of those teams are staying home. Everybody else is going bowling.
There is such meaningless games. There is one bowl game that I understand isn't going to be even going to be televised. The Arizona Bowl, which actually winds up with two teams from the
same conference, right?
From the same conference,
the WAC,
from the WAC. And then there's my favorite, the Cure Bowl, which is San Jose State and Georgia State. You have one team that's 6-6, the other one that's 5-7.
I love the way she talked about the Mediocre Bowl, which is the two 6-6 teams, Virginia Tech and can't remember who the other team was.
But the only attraction in that one is it's going to be Frank Beamer's last game as a college coach, Virginia Tech. If you're big on that,
I respect Frank Beamer, but it's not a big. It's not a must-watch for me just because it's Frank's last game.
It's not a game I'd be interested in. Yes, the Cure Bowl. 5-7 San Jose State versus 6-6 Georgia State. I think that is a game. If you walked into a book in Vegas and said, "I want to bet the Cure Bowl," the guy behind the counter is going to go, "No, you don't."
No, he's going to go in the back, make up the spread, and come back. Okay, you could bet it now. No problem.
No problem. Is there actually a line out on this one?
I'm sure there is. There's a line on everything.
There's a line on whether we. Yes, right now, San Jose State is a 4-point favorite.
Did I ever
jump on that one right away? By golly,
Jack Albert used to have a great line. He'd say, how dare anybody say professional wrestling is phony? He goes, it's the only legit sport around. There's no line on any of these matches.
There you go.
I said, see, that proves
there
it.
You go. I think he has some logic behind that.
Jim,
I got to admit, I've already taken Michigan in 10 points.
Michigan or Michigan?
Or Michigan State rather, in 10 points. I happened to be looking down the line in here, and I saw Michigan's name, and I said that by mistake. Please forgive me. Michigan is a 4-point favorite over Florida, though, by the way.
Speaking of lines, though, I mentioned to you a few people that I've run into very recently that think all of the games, I'll say NFL games, let's just narrow it down, are fixed.
We were talking about this yesterday, and I'm having a hard time with that one.
Well, when you think about the money from the casinos, the gamblers, the players are making good money, the coaches, the league is making money. To me, I'm not saying that a game could never be fixed. That's we're humans, so people have foibles, and that's a possibility always. But to say that every game in the league, the whole thing is prearranged from game one to the Super Bowl, I think is, first off, it's beyond belief. The other thing is, I don't think anybody that's really in charge would be stupid enough to do that, because it'd be you'd be killing the golden goose. The goose that lays the golden eggs would be dead.
You'd be killing the golden goose. And when you look at this right now, do you think that let's just say, as a possibility, as I'm looking at division leaders right now, the NFL and whoever has the Super Bowl this year?
I have no idea who's got the Super Bowl.
I don't know who has it. Are they going to be interested in having, let's say, a Carolina and Indianapolis Super Bowl? Not big markets, or Washington at 5-7 versus Indianapolis?
You're talking about Super Bowl finalists.
Yeah, I'm talking about finalists.
That's always part of the conversation with the people who think these things are prearranged. I would like to know, a big market city like Chicago, the White Sox had God knows how many years in between World Series championships, and the Cubs have been 85. Over 100 years. So, if it's prearranged, you would think they would throw Chicago a bone on occasion.
Yeah.
And, New York wouldn't dominate all the time, because the Yankees basically did that for a century. They won a quarter of the championships for one century. It doesn't, to me, it just doesn't compound. The other thing that I would throw in there is when you're a kid and you're on the street and you're playing touch football, or you find a lot and you play tackle football, or you're playing wiffle ball on the street, your instinct is to win. And I don't think you just take these guys and bring them to the highest level and say, okay, now we're going to pull back the reins and, the games are all fixed. Forget that competitiveness that you have. We're going to just do this just for show.
Yeah. No, I can't see it. I can't see it.
Too many blown out knees, too many.
There's too many injuries.
Yeah.
There's too many guys who've had careers end early. You want guys who've been diagnosed with CTE. Mm-hmm. All those guys. You mean to tell me though that was all fixed?
Yeah, that's.
You've got guys who can't even make it to, retired players who sometimes can't even make it to 60.
Yeah, that's There's no way. By the way, talking about guys who from the era that you're talking about, I'm reading that, as you know, that Buffon biography by Chet Kopic.
Great. I'll say it again. Great book. Wonderful. Anybody out there who wants a good read, go over to the library and pick it up, or go find Chet. He'll sell you a copy.
I have to say, too, I really feel good about being an armchair expert today, reading that book, because Buffon has some of the exact same thoughts about football that I've been talking about for a while. One of the things that he had mentioned in his book is they talked about the referees a little bit. And he really gave the refs a pass, which I would do as well, because he said the game is so ruled up that, he said in his day you didn't see the flags the way they are today. But he said the other thing, though, to give the officials a pass, is these rules make no sense. He said, I've been saying for years, he said, of course the ground can cause a fumble.
Yeah.
And you know what? You don't have to make a football-type move before a receiver either has dropped the ball, has the ball, and has taken a step, and then you rule a fumble. I mean, these rules have gotten so ridiculous. They're not even football rules anymore.
They've gotten so ridiculous, and I think it's reached the point where you've got officials who are supposed to be on the field interpreting them and can't.
Well, I think because, when you see a sporting event, and this would apply to the officials as well as the players and coaches, a lot of what you see on the field is muscle memory, and that would apply to the officials as well.
Sure.
And when you have to think more than a second or two about what you're seeing or what is this call, that is too much, and that shows me that the officials are pretty overloaded by the book, and
I have not.
I don't think it's a very enjoyable game.
No, I have not. Honestly, I have not looked at an NFL rule book in several years. You can't do this, you can't do that. The flags are much too frequent, and you look at them and you go, "What was that for?"
Yeah. Well, did you see, what game was it? I was watching a game last weekend, and I can't remember which one, or it might have been the Bears game on Thanksgiving, and there were a couple of defensive back penalties that were. I'm like, what did the guy do? I mean, he might have made this type
One
of
of those,
contact,
yeah, one of those contacts.
where he just hit him with just gave him like a little bit of a shiver, not even a shiver. He just made contact, and the ref's dropping a flag. I'm like, why? What did he do? He didn't do it now. But on the other hand, I've watched guys like Richard Sherman, who I think at least when they show him, he commits a foul every play, but he never gets called. I mean, rarely. So I don't know if these guys have instructions, who could be flagged and who's not supposed to be flagged,
or who to watch more,
or who to, yeah. Well, that would be common. I mean, that among
sure,
sure. That would be a common thing.
Sure.
But I just think that the rules are ruining the game. When we played on the sandlot, or we played on somebody's side grass.
Yeah.
If you went down and you kept the ball and somebody tried to tear it out from your arms, of course you were down. But if you were going down, regardless if your knee hit or not, and that ball came out, everybody knew that was a fumble.
You were trained early on when that ball came out. You go for the ball, or if you're not near it, you yell, "Ball."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Ball.
Yeah.
You hear that on the field all the time. Ball, and everybody's alert, turns around, goes for it.
Yeah. The other thing he talked about.
You hear Tom Thayer yelling that in the booth on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean he gets excited and he will yell that. The other thing he talked about a little bit, which I have to agree with, he said when you take guys like, he named guys like Butkus and Sayers and Payton and Atkins and Deacon Jones and guys like this. And he says, I have to laugh when they say the players from the 60s and 70s couldn't play today. He goes, you know what? They'd be out there kicking what.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd say, the game has totally changed. He said, there's no doubt it's still a violent game. But he said it was really, it's violent still, but it was really rough back then. And I can remember
lack of protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as equipment.
Plus, I mean, they admitted they went out and they wanted to knock guys out of games.
Sure.
That was part of the deal. I remember Artie Donovan in his book Fatso said one time when he was playing for the Colts, he said he got knocked down, he knew he broke his leg, and the guy who knocked him down knew he broke his leg. He says, but then the guy just stomped on him a little bit to make sure that it was good and broke. And it was like, you laugh about it, but that's the way the way they thought.
That was the way the game was played.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
You think about that. You think about the injuries and the way these guys played the game back then. I mean, there was an article a few weeks ago that Frank Gifford's brain was examined after he died. And it showed he had CTE. So this was the first player from the pre-Super Bowl era where it was evidence that he had CTE. Now, as far as anything regarding his behavior, nobody knows. Of course, then again, his wife would never say anything. Yeah. But and you think about when old Concrete Chuck Bednarik nailed him in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was out for at least a year.
He was out for a year.
Yeah. The interesting thing, though, is that as I'm reading the book, they had a whole chapter that was basically devoted to Doug Plank. And Plank was one of the hardest hitters and used his head. And I
and we're not talking intelligence-wise.
well, he's here's the thing though. Doug Plank is still around. He's 62 years old. He has aspirations of being the University of Illinois AD. I don't think he's really going to be considered seriously, but he's been a very successful businessman.
Yeah.
He's also
coached,
come
too.
back and
He's
coached a
coached.
little bit
Yeah.
in the Arena League.
Yeah.
And done well. So I'm thinking, here's a guy who did nothing but hit people with his head, and he seems to be okay. The other thing that I never realized, I didn't put these two together, but I tell you, I wouldn't want to have been a Big Ten.
If he wants to be the Illinois athletic director and used his head that much, I don't know if he's that okay.
Oh, maybe he's not okay. The thing I didn't realize, back in the 60s, I don't know if I would have wanted to be a Big Ten receiver or back, because you had Doug Plank and Jack Tatum in the same defensive backfield.
Yeah.
I mean, look out, baby,
Yeah.
because you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
Man, there are a couple of missiles flying
There's a
around
couple of
back
guys
there.
that just fly at you.
Oh, my gosh.
What was Tatum's book? They call me the assassin.
The assassin. Yeah, you know what? The Buffon said that he figures there is no way that Jack Tatum should not be in the Hall of Fame, but he feels he's not in the Hall of Fame because he had never apologized for the Stingley hit.
Yeah.
And Jim, you want to explain that?
Darrell Stingley was a receiver for New England back in the late 60s, early 70s. He was a Chicago boy. Came out of CVS, wasn't it?
I'm not sure which school, but he was Chicago.
He was he was a Chicago kid. Went to
Purdue.
Purdue. That's right. Game between Oakland and New England. Darrell Stingley not only put him out of the game, he put him in a wheelchair, and Jack Tatum put him in a wheelchair, and Darrell Stingley never walked again.
Right.
And that really just totally destroyed Tatum's reputation. It just, it gave him that aura of being the assassin.
Right.
Which I guess in those days with Oakland, that's what everybody wanted.
In Oakland, that would have been their goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But the mindset. Buffon started talking about. Kopic asked him about the handshakes after the game, and everybody's buddy. He goes, well, he said, I had friends that I played college football with, and guys that I knew that I was friends with. But after a game, I did not feel like going up and hugging a guy and saying, how's the wife and kids, and how's that boating trip coming along that you're going to take after the season. He says that just wasn't my attitude.
no.
And he said that wasn't a lot of people's attitude. He said it certainly wasn't George S. Halas's attitude. I would say not. Did I ever tell you the time it was like toward the end of my days in softball, and I was playing with a team called Traffic, and we had a televised league from Forest Park. So our game that week was televised, and I was working with a guy by the name of Augie LaCursha, who was an old paisan, obviously, and had played softball. So I get to work, and immediately Augie is in my face. Rich, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, what are you talking about, Aug? He goes, how come you were shaking hands with those guys after the game? And I said, I know a lot of those guys. He goes, we never shook hands. He goes, you shouldn't be shaking hands with those guys. So the attitude was totally different. And it wasn't just the pros; it was everybody.
Everybody, right down to the game.
And personally, I actually think that let's put it this way: if you want to go over, say somebody on the other team after the game, you want to go over and shake that person's hand personally, that's fine. But this whole deal of everybody lining up and shaking everybody's hand, what is that? Everybody does it. The other one I always get is when they introduce the teams before the game, and now they run over, they fist bump the other coach, they fist bump all the officials. I'm like, you know what? I've officiated myself. But if I'm in the game, even if that official is one of my best friends, I'm not going up. I might schmooze him a little bit. But I'm not fist bumping him.
Yeah,
okay?
I think we should move our broadcast position down to the floor, so they can come over and fist bump us then too.
I don't.
John is looking at that, going, yeah.
John, he's not fooling anybody. He just
Yeah.
wants to sit close to Amanda during the.
Why not? We're just as good as they are down
We're
on the
just
floor.
as good as they are.
That's it. We
That's
are.
right.
Well, you know.
The only thing I got to say about that, guys, I think that shows good sportsmanship, though, when they do that.
You know what? The only time
Respect.
I think it's always
It
great
does.
at the end of a Stanley Cup playoff series,
That's
but
really good.
you know,
Yeah.
that to me, that's one of the most impressive things in sports. I don't want to see everybody line up at the, get in line, everybody go down the line. Okay, sportsmanship. You got to teach it somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
You know, when we were kids, if we were kids and you lost a Little League game to another team and somebody who was in your class was on that team, you know you're going to hear about it.
That's right.
You're going to hear about it and hear about it and hear about it.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
There
true.
wasn't no sportsmanship then.
And God forbid that you didn't play well.
Oh,
man, that
yeah,
really hurt about
you know,
it.
then,
Hey, you made an error. That was
yeah,
a
it was-
nice play.
You made an error. Struck out with the bases loaded.
Yeah, right. Oh God, we had fun back then though. It's an interesting.
And the
look
response
and,
the response would always be, "Shut up!"
and you know what? I'd like to see Chet Kopic fit in this basement because I think he's a pretty tall
He's
guy.
about 6'5", 6'6", I
But
think.
John, I don't know if you heard part of the conversation, but Jim was suggesting to me last night. I think it was after the game that he's been in touch with Chet Kopic through the internet, Jim.
Yeah, internet and tweet.
and tweeting and whatnot. But he's actually thinking maybe we can get Chet over here for interview.
Chet does. Chet. I don't know if Chet's still doing a podcast. I know he was for a while. Out of his condo, out of his West Loop condo.
Yeah.
But I think if we ever tied it into a book signing, if we tied it into a book signing, Chet will be happy to come and sell anybody anything.
See, I now I'm thinking more about this conversation. I also suggested maybe if we actually could get Chet, maybe instead of having him come here, that's when we could do the remote from Fanny's, and we get her some business, and then he could do some book signings, and it might be a good deal for everybody.
If we do enough advertising, both on our end and at her end at the store over there, we might be able to get a good showing.
Pick
you
up
know.
a good
Yeah.
crowd.
But if he was to come here, I would say let's wait until May or June. We can do the remote. We could do a remote in my backyard.
There we go.
Yeah,
My
that-
screen
that's
house.
true.
Out in the screen house. Yeah,
Wow.
but Chet wants to sell stuff. He wants to sell books.
Yeah.
And,
so a public place would be
Yeah,
good.
a public place.
You know, like I told you last night, gentlemen, I met him several times. He used to come to WJJG at the studios there. And one Thanksgiving, Oscar and I, we went to a restaurant on Milwaukee Avenue, right across from St. Albert Cemetery.
Oh yeah, the White Eagle.
No. A little further north, Jim. A little further down north, there's another restaurant that's down there.
Yeah, I know the
yeah,
one you're
I
talking
think-
about.
I think
Is it
the-
the Chambers or
So-
something?
yeah, that's it. Yes,
Chambers is closed. Chambers went out
Is
of
that
business.
what been out of business?
Cha-
Okay.
Chambers went
well,
out
I
of
did.
business.
I did telephone work in that restaurant. And one day, Thanksgiving, Oscar and I, we went there and we sit next to Chet at the table.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've known him. Like I said,
He's an interesting guy. He's reached what is he? I think 67 or 68. He's kind of. I see a lot of times where he seems to reflect on everything that's gone wrong in his life. When I talked to him in July, he had foot surgery, and the guy really botched it up.
Oh man.
Well,
And to the point where they had to go in and he lost most of his big toe on one foot.
Oh wow.
You know something,
Yeah.
Jim? We had the same thing with my dad.
Yeah.
My dad went to a foot doctor, and my dad wound up in a hospital, and it's amazing he didn't have his leg amputated because of his knucklehead.
Yeah. So
I was going to
Excuse the
say, Jim,
expression.
as I'm thinking
that's
about
that's minor compared to some of the stuff that we've come out of. You know, you're the one with the priest on speed dial
That's
every
right.
time we
Yep.
come in here.
Well, I think he's on vacation right now.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I have to go see him tonight, by the way.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think one of the things I sort of like about Kopic, and it gives me a little bit of a soft spot for him, where a lot of people criticize him, is I think not him, he and I, but us. I think we're a little similar in style because he likes to, you know what, his mind goes from thing to thing. You know, one thing triggers another thought, and then he's on to a different topic. And I you know what, I don't say that we're like him, but I can understand that because that's, I think, the little bit the way that we do things. We're on one thing, something you said, or
Triggers-
something I said
triggers
triggers
something
another thought, and then we're off onto another subject.
Yeah.
And I don't really mind that, to be honest with you. I like that.
I like the fact that when we come down here, sometimes they have some things in mind that we want to talk about, or I'll have some things in mind, or I'll see an article and I'll tear it out because I thought it was funny or something relevant. And actually, there were a couple of things that's sitting on the dining room table in Woodridge now because I forgot them.
There you go.
so much for relevance.
Yeah.
So much for relevance. Although I brought it up. And as we've had the bowl games starting out, one guy suggested ways to change the schedule for all the sports, including college football, make everything proper and relevant. And he said that college football should start in September. All games should be on campus. The season should end on New Year's Day with a college football championship game being held in the Rose Bowl, as God intended it to be.
Yeah, I would amend that a little bit, but I hear where he's coming from.
Yeah. He wants to, everything get back to being traditional. And the one thing I did laugh about when he talked about soccer, he said Americans are incapable of suggesting anything regarding soccer.
They're incapable of suggesting anything.
Yes, or
I would be
recommending.
definitely incapable. No,
Or
no,
no.
I sort of disagree with that.
No.
I really think that soccer would be a better game if you took, even on the in the outdoor game, if you at least had a set of sideboards,
Yeah,
so that the game could continue.
yeah. That's why the indoor game became really kind of popular there.
Yeah.
Because it was like you were playing foosball in the bar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that soccer purists would say, "Okay, you're off your rocker." But
No.
that from my point of view, as an American who's not been brought up with soccer, that would enhance the game. I detest. I think we've talked about this before. These guys are supposedly supposed to be so good with their feet, yet they cannot control the ball to keep it from going over the end line, where then they have to pick it up and then throw it back into play. So, I just like to see the play be continuous so that they could actually live up to their claim of, just being constantly on the move and in such great physical condition, which I think is a crock. Mm-hmm. So,
I just happened to glance at that article that we talked about at the beginning of the show from the all the bowl games that Nancy Armour from USA Today wrote. The teams that were 5 and 7 that were selected for the to play in bowl games. The reason they were
I saw it.
Their academic progress rate, whatever that means.
That's really enlightens everybody there.
Yeah,
Their academic progress rate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw, I give them credit, and they obviously had some turmoil this year, and they've lost their coach due to health reasons. But Missouri said even at 5 and 7, if somebody invited us to a bowl game, we're not going.
Well, I mean that's totally ridiculous. What are you gonna brag that you win the game, you end up 6 and 7, and you won the schlepprock.com bowl or something? I don't know.
If you could tell me where the Belk Bowl is or what the Belk Bowl is.
Really? I don't know. When I saw that, I don't know, is Belk an acronym or it's got to be somebody's name.
Somebody's
if it's not an
company
acronym.
or something. I don't know. I was looking down at the list the other day, and I saw the Russell Athletic Bowl, and I think it's called the Russell Athletic Bowl because nobody wants to call it the Jockstrap Bowl. and with that thought, let's take a break.
Yeah.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, December the 9th, the year of our Lord 2015, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack Frost FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now, back to Jim and Rich.
And we're still waiting for Santa.
My question about the bowls is the Rose does the Rose have a corporate sponsor?
They do, but they won't put it in the title.
Okay,
they will put it the Rose Bowl presented by.
I see. Which I like. Because,
which I would rather, yeah.
The bowls started to really turn me off when it became the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl and
Yeah, they had the big they had the
Roto-Rooter
and they,
Citrus Bowl,
and they had the big logo for Tostitos in there. We were calling it the Chip and Dip Bowl.
Actually, though, the only thing now, actually, when I think about it, the Fiesta Bowl, sponsored by Tostitos,
and it's not sponsored by Tostitos anymore.
When it was,
yeah.
I would give that a bit of a pass because Fiesta Tostitos.
Yeah, it's a nice little.
Together.
It's a nice little tie-in.
But when you're the Roto-Rooter Peach Bowl, it doesn't really make sense. So,
Games I'm looking forward to seeing. Obviously, Michigan State, Alabama. Kind of screws up our New Year's Eve because we were going to go up to Evanston. We actually bought things for Evanston for their first night up in Evanston, and which is a fun event, by the way. Great music and entertainment and a bunch of venues in downtown Evanston.
Where are you going?
Evanston.
But where in Evanston? Just
There's
downtown?
Downtown. They have it in. Actually, they're in the churches right in the downtown area.
Oh, okay.
In fact, one of my favorite jazz musicians, Howard Levy, is going to do a couple of sets at First Presbyterian Church, and we wanted to go to that. But now Michigan State's playing at 7 o'clock and kind of screws up the whole evening.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so this is a dilemma now to try to face.
Well, can't you pick it up on a smartphone or something?
I think it's going to be on the smartphone that
okay.
night. We're going to have to watch that, and I'm going to have to walk around with my earplugs in all night.
As much as I love sports, I would forego the pleasure of even, maybe if it was that wouldn't happen on New Year's Eve, but if it was, say, the Bears were in the Super Bowl, then I might do it, but. Dana, that's Dana's alma mater.
Yeah, so it's a big event.
Deal.
It's a big event for her. The other two games that are very interesting to me, obviously, I think. Speaking of the Fiesta Bowl, I think the Fiesta Bowl with Notre Dame and Ohio State is going to be a good ball game.
It should be. It should be. I think that the two teams, at least in my mind, should be pretty well matched.
Mm-hmm.
So. Mm-hmm. Both of those games should be competitive. I hate to tell you, though, Jim, I don't think. I think Alabama, although Michigan State fools me all the time. Not fools me. Actually, I was the one who kept predicting a couple of years ago they keep winning. And they are a fooler in the sense that they are better than, for some reason, they're better than they're always perceived to be.
Yeah. And that's actually why when I looked at the board, and we certainly hate to talk gambling out there, kids, but when I saw it, Michigan State plus 10 points, I took the 10 points.
Oh, that's a lot of points. You can't pass that up.
I couldn't pass that one up.
Especially when you have a rooting interest.
I couldn't pass that one up. I couldn't decide to do with the over under because it was 49.5.
Well, the interesting thing I think is that Michigan State has been over the last 3-4 years really a good defensive team, and Alabama. Their big gun is Derrick Henry, and so their running attack is probably their bread and butter.
Yeah, and
so it should be a good matchup.
It should be a good matchup, and I mean, if they can shut him down the way they shut Zeke Elliott down in the Ohio State game, it could be a Michigan State victory. The other game that's going to be interesting to me is Stanford versus Iowa in the Rose Bowl.
Well, at least you have a a traditional Big Ten, Pac-10, or whatever they are, Pac-12, whatever they call themselves now, matchup. A West Coast team versus a Midwest team, and I like it from that point of view.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is, and that I really, really like the Iowa quarterback, C.J. Beathard.
Mm-hmm.
He is really good. So that should be an interesting ball game. And speaking of quarterbacks, did you hear or see anything with the incident that happened after the Big Ten championship game?
No.
With speaking of quarterbacks, when Connor Cook, Archie Griffin came onto the podium to present Connor Cook the Griffin Grange MVP award,
Okay.
and Connor just snatched it out of his hands right away and immediately started talking to the talking head on ESPN.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he caught a lot of grief.
I could imagine.
He caught a lot of grief.
He didn't know who Archie Griffin was?
I don't know what it was, and he had to apologize afterwards.
Well, that apology was warranted, I would say, if that's what happened.
Man, I mean, you watch that, it was like, get out of my way, old man.
Oh, wow. I hate when, they need to know
And
where they came from.
And remember one important thing. Connor Cook is from Ohio.
Oh, geez. Well, maybe that's why he did it. Yeah, I didn't realize it was the Grange Griffin Award. No.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't realize that either. I know they had to. They had originally. I know the championship trophy was originally named the Paterno Stagg Trophy, and then we all know what happened to.
Oh yeah,
that little
Paterno.
Yeah, the Paterno name had to be there, and I think it's just now known as the Big Ten Championship Trophy.
Oh, there you go.
It's
Although I would
big
say
silver
this,
football.
They have a good out, because Joe Paterno, even though Penn State has been at a part of the Big Ten for a while now, when I think about Joe Paterno, I think of him originally when Penn State was an independent,
right.
And so actually, you could say. You could make it the Hayes Stagg Award, or you could make it the interesting thing, too, is the University of Chicago hasn't been a member of the Big Ten for many a moon.
Since the 40s.
Yeah.
Since the 40s, at least. So it's been 75 years since the University of Chicago has been part of the Big Ten.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, as great a coach as Joe Paterno was, again, most of his legacy was probably outside the Big Ten. And there's guys like Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler and probably other coaches who I'm not that familiar with, who had great careers within the Big Ten, who are probably more worthy, if you want to put it that way, of having their names on the award with Stagg. So I don't think it's a big deal that Joe's name's off.
You realize, of course, the Big Ten has 14 teams and the Big 12 has 10 teams. Do you know that?
Well, I find it, these are the things that really, I used to get really aggravated with this type of thing when it happened with Ridgewood. Say a school newspaper would come out and there would be misspellings, things like that. And I'm saying, for God's sake, we're a high school. And I look at it the same way. These are universities. You have 14 teams. You're the Big Ten. What are you talking about?
That's right. That's right.
What was the name of the league? Wasn't always the Big Ten. What was it?
It was the Western Athletic Conference.
Okay, what would be wrong with going back to the Western Athletic
Well, except
Conference?
somebody else is known as the Western
that's
Athletic
right. You got
Conference.
okay, but
No.
you could say the Midwest Athletic Conference,
Yeah.
or you could say the
How about the Big 14?
the Big 14.
There you
Okay.
go.
But they're actually, I think their goal is to maybe grab another 6 schools and have 2 10-team divisions. And then they could be the Big 20. They could be the top 20.
It could be the top 20.
Yeah.
I had another thought in mind that came up with football, and now it escaped me.
College football?
Yeah, college football, and popped right out of my head now. That's terrible. Yeah, no, John, that's not it. That's not the same thought. John is.
What was John?
John
saying?
saw something floating past. He thought it might have been that thought.
I see.
John's just sitting back.
John is sitting back laughing.
He's just sitting
He's
back
having a good
laughing.
time.
At least I'm looking in there today, and it doesn't look like he's nodding off.
Jim, let me ask you now. Talking football, I know a lot of people were bummed by the fact that the Bears could have gotten to 500 on Sunday and they didn't. But what are your thoughts on that game?
You know what? I took a Sunday off.
Sunday off?
We were busy with some other things trying to get done. We went off around the house and we went over to see your mom. And honestly, I had almost forgotten about the game. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at Twitter and Facebook, and everything is exploding. And how terrible Cutler was, which, at least from the numbers, I didn't think he was that bad.
No.
But Robbie Gould missing 2 cheapies.
Yeah, well, what made me bring that up and why I'm glad we were on the subject of football, because I almost would have forgot to talk about this. But when we talked about the Bears prior to the season starting, and a lot of people were, saying they're going to maybe win 3 games, and you would ask me about it, and I said, no, I think they're going to be a work in progress. They're going to be, cut and paste type of thing. But I really think, okay, was it disappointing to lose the way they did? Yeah. But I think what I also said in our early conversations, I know that the Raiders came up, and the Raiders were looking better the first 3-4 games of the season, and we had talked about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, listen, the Raiders are going to be pretty much the same as the Bears. They're a team that's on the rise, and one week they're going to do things that you're going to say, oh, man, fantastic. And then the next week they're going to disappoint you, because that's just the nature of a team that's not quite there yet.
And talking about that, just flipping over right now, both teams are 5-7.
5-7. So the Raiders were bottom of the heap. The Bears probably, even though their record was 5-11 last year, that might have been as bad a performance by a Bears team since 1969.
That was a horrible team.
Mm-hmm.
That was a horrible team. That was a dysfunctional team. That was a poorly coached team.
Yeah, definitely.
Do the Bears have quality players on this year's roster? Yeah,
they have some.
Some. But what's the difference?
Well, the big difference is the
coaching.
I think the coaching, and I think the players are being put in a position to, succeed. But I think the coaching. I would say this, and I am not trying to overstate it. I don't think I've ever seen probably a better job of coaching, and I'm not talking about the game time coaching, but just
preparation,
making players better at what they do than this year's team. Now, I'm sure there's other examples that people could point to, but this, in my knowledge, this is about the best I've seen.
I agree, and I think the word is generally around the league that they're better coached and better prepared.
Yeah,
and better organized.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
That they know, you know what to do. You know where you're supposed to be. You know that when you come out of the huddle,
mm-hmm.
you're not going to be coming to the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden, you have to blow a timeout because somebody did something wrong, or you don't have the play in time.
Jim, I have to ask you this because I don't know the answer. Well, you see guys like Bryce Callahan, who's an undrafted free agent. John Anderson is another undrafted free agent. Christian Jones is an undrafted free agent. And there's probably other people on the team that are not maybe starters that are in that category. Was it the NFL Players Association in conjunction with the league through negotiation that reduced the number of rounds in the draft from, say, 20 to the current 7? Was that how that all came about?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't really recall that, why it suddenly was shortened. And I'd have to look at the history over the years to see, because we do remember back in the day that there was,
thanks, John,
17 rounds, 20 rounds.
There was 17, 20, something.
And I think in a lot of instances it kind of reached the point where you'd look at it and, the same way that the NBA draft went from 10 rounds to 2 rounds.
Right.
Because you looked at the NBA situation. If you were a first-round draft pick, there was about a 95% chance you were going to make the team.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a second-round draft pick, there was about a 70% chance you were going to make the team.
Yeah.
If you were a third-round draft pick, maybe a 10% chance you were going to make the team. And after that, thanks for stopping by.
Well, I'm not asking it because I want to criticize it. I'm asking it because the interesting thing is, I think there's, like anything else, there's some good and bad. Actually, two goods that I can think of. The fact that free agents are starting on NFL teams, free agents out of college, I should say, with no pro experience, shows that, you could still have more rounds in the draft. But I think the good thing, the really good thing, the thing I like, is that if you're a really sharp organization and you really have the bird dogs out, that those gems that are not guys that are necessarily going to go among those 300 or however many, 200 and some players that are drafted, but if you're sharp, can still get those guys.
But you know about them.
Right, you know about them. You can still get them.
You know about them. You've either had the bird dogs out or you've been sitting and watching ESPN football games at 11 o'clock on a Friday night.
The guys who are interesting to me, my understanding, say, of a guy like Christian Jones is that ability-wise, the teams that were interested in him thought that he had the ability. But there was some, I don't know what it was that had happened to him at was Florida State, I think, that caused everybody to back off of him. But so he's been here a couple of years, and I'm not saying that things can't happen, but he seems to have been just a straight shooter, a good guy, and
there was some trouble at Florida State, and everybody went nope. Mm-hmm. But he seems to have played well. I remember the thought, and you made me think of it when you talked about getting on the school newspaper with misspellings and that.
Right.
Somebody announced the other day over the air that Matt Forte has become a father for the second time this week.
Yeah, you get those every once in a while.
That was the thing you listen to and you just go, oh.
Well, did you ever pick up any of those books where they talk about misnomer? There was. And, they'll show you. Somebody is writing. They're seriously writing a sentence that is supposed to mean something. It's not tongue in cheek, and they come up with something like you just said.
Yeah, there were an English professor wrote a couple of extreme. I might still have one of them at home. A couple of extremely funny books the books were called Anguished English. Mm-hmm. And he said some of the funniest things can come out of the courtroom.
Okay.
Things like, an attorney asking a witness on the stand, you testified that you were shot in the lumbar region. And he goes, no, I testified I was shot in the forest. And doctor, how many autopsies have you performed on dead people?
Those are good.
Those type of things that you question, that makes you wonder, and you just sit there and you shake your head.
Well, I'd put that in the category though of when you, especially I'd be the first to dog out the media. But when you say you write a lot or you have to speak a lot, and you're putting out, tens of thousands of words, say, in a week, those missteps verbally or in writing sometimes are inevitable because you're not going to be able to say everything exactly the way you want to. And something's going to come out, slip out. It's going to be wrong. It's going to sound goofy, and it just happens. Mm-hmm. It's the percentages is what it is. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And I mean the way things come out. I mean it's always been funny. Like one guy who's always had. They still some of his stuff is still legendary over on the Score. But George Hoffman, who does sports updates on WPBM on News Radio 78, came out with a couple of ones. I think he was the one that. He was the one that said also in something like also in attendance were the children of Johnny Kerr, who will be buried on Thursday.
There you go. Yeah, like that. That's Jim. Before I forget it,
we got 10.
We've got time.
And you know, when we hit the top of the hour, and I look at John, and John just waves his hand like, "Go ahead."
But I just wanted to take before I forget the time to when I came in today. I looked around, and John has decorated the basement.
Yeah,
and I love Christmas stuff, and I love people who really
get into
do it
Christmas.
right. And John, I really like the way you decorated everything down here, and it looks real Christmassy, and I really appreciate it. So
brightens us up.
Yeah.
You should come by here at nighttime and see how the front of the house looks all lit up. It's beautiful.
I may. Now that everybody's getting their Christmas stuff up, I might take a walk.
There's our neighbors in Woodridge have something really cool. It's a digital light thing, some sort of digital light thing. And they shine it at the front of the house, and it looks like the whole house is covered in lights. You're nodding your head. You must have seen that.
Yes, I've seen it because my neighbor up in Wisconsin has got one, and they can be bought at the Walmart for about $39.99 or something.
Okay,
like that.
Nice.
One of our friends up there was telling my sister and I about it not this Saturday, a week ago Saturday, and we went and looked at it, and it's beautiful.
It is.
They call it the Star, I think.
And I mean
like
that they just have that thing in the front lawn, and it shines on, and it looks like the house has a net of lights over it.
Yes.
And I said, "This is great. This is like putting lights up without putting lights up."
That's right.
Yeah.
I could handle that.
You see, you need a house where it's wide up there. Like this house here
Wouldn't work. No.
And my house up in Elkhorn wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But if you have a house that is, your house wouldn't work either.
No, but in Woodridge it might. In Woodridge it
you
might.
have to have a house that's more wide.
And we could
tall.
Aim it so it across the front of the house and across the side where the garage extends out.
Yeah. I've seen, like I said, my neighbor right down the road from me up there. They've got it, and it is really beautiful.
It is cool.
And I those are things I enjoy doing. I enjoy decorating for Christmas. I enjoy decorating for Halloween. And like I told Rich when he came into the studios this morning, it wasn't for Oscar upstairs. God bless his soul. And he really went all out to help decorate the house this year.
Good.
He really did a great, fantastic job. And the kid up in Elkhorn, Ryan Pearson, who just turned 16 or 17 the other day, he really helped me up there decorate the place. Both houses really look beautiful up there. Very, very nice.
Good. Right.
That's good. I really like the Christmas has got such a great feel to it, whether you look at it from a religious point of view or just what you might call a traditional American Christmas, where you talk about Santa Claus and Frosty the Snowman and that type of thing, but just a really good feel and a really good time of the year.
Yeah.
I see you're turning to some baseball news.
We started to talk about this a little bit last night. I can't remember if it was during the game, after the game, or before the game, and we were trying to figure out why. How did Jason Hayward suddenly become so expensive?
Oh, that's right. I looked and I saw they're talking about $20 million a year.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking this guy is. I'm not saying that he's not. He has his uses, but I don't know. How did he get to be at the top of the pile there? Like that?
I didn't. I'm going. What did I miss here?
And think about this, Jim. He started out with Atlanta, and obviously, something happened that they moved him along to St. Louis. I don't think he was a free agent. I think he got traded. And he was with St. Louis for a year. And here's where I would say St. Louis when you see a guy build up a value like that, and they've been with St. Louis for a year or maybe a few, it seems that players perform a little bit better with the Cardinals. It may be that you put them in with other solid players, and I remember prior to, the guy who's with the Yankees now, the outfielder, what's his name?
Jose?
No.
Be quiet.
Who's the guy that he's a switch hitter? He played outfield for the Cards. He had been with the Mets. He had been with the Astros. He was with the Royals.
Yeah, Jose.
Yeah, but
it might be. I can't. I'm blank on his name too.
I guess my point would be, when Carlos Beltran.
Okay, we were close.
When
you were close, John. It was Carlos.
When Beltran came over to the Cardinals, I kept thinking, why are they getting this guy? Because I didn't think he fit the mold. And you know what? He became a solid player with the Cardinals and moved on to the Yankees, and he's been solid.
Yeah.
Hayward, I think, was a little bit of a disappointment in Atlanta. Came to St. Louis, played, I guess, good ball, enough to really jack his asking price up. But I guess the part I don't trust is a guy like Hayward, who's not been with the Cardinals for more than a year, and maybe those good habits, if you want to put it that way, aren't ingrained. What are you actually going to get when you get with this guy? Are you just going to get some big potential that never pans out for you? I mean, why has his price tag gone up that much?
I don't understand that one. I'm still trying to figure that one. I would prefer them looking at a trade for Alex Gordon. I see Carlos Gomez is another name bandied about.
Carlos, my when I started to look at what they were potentially talking about, I would really love to see a trade of Soler to Atlanta for either Miller or Tehran.
Yeah.
And then couple that with going into the free agent market to get Alex Gordon. I think you would you'd add a strong starting pitcher, plus you'd have a very, very solid the type of player the Cubs want in the outfield in Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think the big thing you're going to see, Jim, as the years go on, is and I'm not going to name any names, but Soler is the number one guy over. I'm talking about in terms of trade, but you may see guys like maybe Baez or even who's the big Kyle Schwarber.
I don't think
eventually be chips.
I don't think you're going to see that right now.
Not now, but I'm saying as we go through the years.
Now, the other possibility, and I know there was some talk about Baez going to Tampa for a pitcher, but apparently that talk is being really driven by the Rays.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that you have to think about is if you don't come up with a deal as far as Hayward, who's your center fielder? Who could you be your center fielder next year? Javi Baez.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, I hope the heck they're not going to go. I trust their judgment, but I'm hoping that Hayward is not a guy that they're going to get. I don't see him being worth that investment.
I'm scratching my head on that one as to whether he's worth a $20 million for 8 years. Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, and I see the poor White Sox are trying to look at Tyler Saladino as a possible for shortstop next year.
Well, all of a sudden, when your catcher has a 289 on base percentage, framing pitches and all that stuff doesn't seem to become quite as valuable as thinking that you get a couple guys who may offensively do some damage for you in Avila and Navarro.
Yeah,
I mean, all of a sudden. And, I'm saying this facetiously, but this is the way things actually work. You fill a hole, you think, okay, this is what we need. We need a guy who's a good defensive catcher. Let's not go into all the pitch framing there. Okay, now you got the guy, okay, Flowers, pretty good defensive catcher. The pitchers like the way he calls the game. He's not super offensively. I mean, he's not the worst either, but, okay, he's not great offensively. And then you you just signed 2 or 3 hitters for last year to bulk up your offense. That didn't work. So now you jettison the catcher, and you bring in two, and really in this case, so-so hitters, to improve that position offensively. It's a constant trade-off, and unless you really get some really solid, permanent guys, a lot of times it just doesn't work for you. I saw one of the things for the Cubs, Jim, by the way, is that he wasn't in play, but now he seems to be in play because of his salary as a trade chip is Montero.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
Now I know you were very you were ridiculing that deal last year because he's a great pitch framer. That's all you heard. But you know what? This was a guy who managed a game really well and managed his pitchers really well out there.
Plus,
I thought.
I just think he's from the outside looking in, he looked like a really good team guy. I got to say this: as much as I hate the fact that people can jump from team to team in one sense, I have to really admire some of these guys because you come over to a team and okay, this is probably going to be the only year I'm with this team. In some cases. And you see that guy, like who was our center fielder, Fowler.
Yeah.
Here's a guy. I'll tell you what. I watched those playoffs. I watched those games, and this guy knows he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and it's likely he's not going to be back. But my impression was he was totally into what he was doing.
He was into what he was doing, and he had an opportunity that they tendered him a contract.
Yeah.
15.8 million, and he could understand, and I think the Cubs could understand too, that I need to see. I'm at a point now where I need to see what I can get in the market.
I guess the point that I would like to make about, say, and I'm using Fowler just as an example. There's other guys on all the different teams that are in similar situations. When the people say professional, they think that a guy can turn the switch on and off on the field. But when I think of professional, I think of what I just said. Here's a guy who's likely to be in this one spot. This is going to be his home for a short period of time. But he gives it his all and makes it the best experience that he can make it. That is a professional.
That's a professional.
Definitely.
It's not just strictly for himself. I've got a team. I'm playing in a team for a team that I like. I'm playing for a manager that I like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I might as well enjoy it. I'll see what I get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
They tendered him the offer. He's going to try the open market, and that's not necessarily saying that he's going to sign somewhere else. He could conceivably come back here.
Sure.
It's winter meetings time, so you never know what other things are going to come out this week. I just happen to look down and I see Sox have some interest in Brett Lowry as far as filling their third base needs, especially if they move Tyler Saladino over to shortstop.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the time of year where you get a little action and see what's going on.
Well, I look forward to this week because we should have quite a bit of baseball news. Hopefully, the writers seem to think that the general managers' meetings are going to be pretty active this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always interested to see the trades, especially guys who I recognize. I'm at the point in time where I don't recognize every player.
Whatever happened to us? We knew all these guys.
I think you know what.
Third base, Kansas City.
we just I don't think we watch as much. Once the playoffs came, and you got to see say the Cardinals for a little stretch. You got to see the Mets. Then you got to see the Royals versus the Mets. Then okay, now I know who. Who the players are. Who was Escobar played the Alcides Escobar, the shortstop for the Royals. You had said, okay, he's some guy from the Dominican or whatever. I don't know. They're all. I hate to say it this way. Probably, if we had a big audience, I'd be getting phone calls out the rear end. But
you'd be in trouble.
They're all the same to me. But
yeah.
But no, this guy is a nice ball player.
He's a good ball player.
Very good ball player.
And he got a chance to see, because I'm not going to spend the money to subscribe to, the MLB network to watch all the out-of-market games.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the time, and I really don't want to sit up until midnight watching a game from the West Coast.
Sure. Yeah.
But to get an opportunity to see some of the guys that you heard about during the year, or maybe only saw a couple of games when they came into town.
Exactly.
Granted, we could see Kansas City more because same division, right? Yeah. Same division. We'd get to see him more if you follow the White Sox, but get to see some really, really good baseball.
Man, I tell you, the guy
get to see some of those outstanding Mets pitchers.
I almost texted you one night, Jim, to say, do you think? And it takes a lot to impress me to this point. Do you think that Ben Zobrist is a Hall of Fame candidate? Because here's a guy who, I don't know, my impression is that when he was with Tampa Bay, he pretty much did everything. But, they plugged him in now at second base with the Royals. I watched him in the field. He was fantastic. At bat, he was fantastic. And I'm thinking, I don't know what his stats are. I mean, one time I looked in Who's Who in Baseball, and power numbers and everything were more than I thought they would be. But I'm like, this guy is an outstanding player. I can understand why our manager, Joe Madden, wanted him. Because who wouldn't want him?
Who wouldn't want him? I mean, he had him in Tampa and wanted him back.
Yeah.
And I think if the opportunity presented itself, Ben would have been happy to come here.
Oh, I think so. And I think we would have all seen firsthand why he's considered to be so valuable.
Yeah.
But just a great player. I would say a great player.
I'm getting a signal, so I guess I must have to say something wise and legal right now. 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich. On a clear night, you can hear us on River Road. On a really clear night, you can hear us on York Road.
Yeah, we just found that out a little while ago. York Road, we're really going
on
to
a
town.
Really clear night. We make it all the way to York Road.
Man, that's all the way past the airport.
Wow.
Holy moly. But at any rate, I don't know how we got off on this tangent, but
like we do every other tangent.
We're off.
But I think we're starting to run out of gas, so we might as well just wrap this sucker up for another edition of Radio Magic that we've managed to kill about an hour and 8 minutes of.
We did. I didn't even realize we went over.
Yeah,
I thought we were just. The last time I looked, it was 10-2, and I'm thinking, okay, we got 10 minutes to kill, and we killed 20.
John sits in amazement at us, just going, I just let them go. They just kind of wander from one thought to the next. But once again, we had fun. Hope you had fun. We'll catch up with you again in a couple of weeks. Until then, enjoy the holiday season. We'll try to figure out some year-end Christmas special in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Until then, we are out of here. We are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, December the 9th, the year of our Lord 2015, on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with the WRHS sports announcers Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zefalik of WRHS FM Norwich, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, December the 8th, the year 2015. Until next time, please be safe, and thanks for listening. And this is Jack Frost FM, 89.7 WRHS FM, Norridge, Illinois. Have a great day and a great weekend, everyone. See you next week.